By the end of this video, you will know the 12 absolute best large indoor plants. If you are bored with your small houseplants that, just sit on a windowsill or on the table, and you want a big plant that's gonna really stick out, then this video is for you. I have got a great list of trees, tropical plants, and cacti, all of which can be grown indoors easily, and all of which will totally transform the space they're in. So, if you've got a room that you want to turn into a chill tropical oasis with some large plants, then you are definitely going to want to check out some of these plants. And at the end, I've got an incredible tropical plant that can get much larger than most people realize, even in low light. And it is going to bring a luxurious tropical vibe to any space it's in. So you definitely don't want to miss that. I think you guys are honestly going to be pretty surprised by this one. So let's get into it. Plant number one, we are starting off with the rubber tree. I had to come out of the gate strong with a real classic, of course, and I think that the rubber tree is one of the most underrated houseplants ever. There are a bunch of different types of rubber tree that are just super unique and really look nothing at all like any of the other trees that you can grow indoors. There are a few different green rubber trees, there are red rubber trees, and there are some that are like reddish purple, like this very dark purple color, and those ones are just beautiful. There's also a few variegated rubber trees. There is a white and green variegated one that is called the Teneke, and I think my favorite of all time, the Schefflera. The Schefflera rubber tree is really incredible, and it can sometimes get these really wild looking variegations that they really don't look like any other plants, any other type of variegation, at least not on any houseplants that I've seen. The rubber tree is fairly easy to take care of. It needs really similar care to a fiddle-leaf fig, a ficus lyrata, so it's not that bad. The rubber tree, which like I said, is just incredible and definitely super underrated, and I don't think people realize just how nice these trees can be. But next up, let's check out a really nice, really easy palm tree. Next up, we have got the Majesty palm, which honestly, another one that I'm surprised that you don't see more often. I really never see people growing these, honestly, and I don't know why. Because they're really easy for a palm tree. I think that palm trees, they're not necessarily the easiest houseplant in general, but the Majesty palm is one of the easiest for sure. As long as they're in a good, bright window, then they'll be okay and they'll be easy to take care of. And like with any palm tree, they do like really high humidity, so it does help if you can, just get a spray bottle and kind of mist them down every once in a while. Even just once a week will help, but it's not totally necessary. And I think these Majesty palms, they look really nice. They're very symmetrical and grow in, a very uniform way, and I really like the look of them. And most importantly for this list, they can grow very tall. They can grow very tall, and they can grow pretty quickly as well if they're in good light. If they're in good light and if you fertilize them. And never forget to fertilize your houseplants, by the way, with a good organic fertilizer. That's something you want to do regardless. But there it is. That is the Majesty palm. And next up, we've got a very tropical looking, very large houseplant. For plant number 3, I'm going with the Amate Schefflera. which is a super tropical looking plant that will totally change the vibe of any room they're in. A lot of you probably know the other popular Schefflera, which is the Schefflera arboricola, also known as the umbrella tree. The umbrella tree is definitely very nice, but the Amate Schefflera, it's like the umbrella tree on steroids. It not only gets really tall, but it also has much bigger leaves. And I love the look of those really large leaves. They can also grow pretty well in low light. So this is a good option if you want a large plant in a room that doesn't have a ton of light. But it will definitely grow much faster if it's at least near a window. So I'd say if you want one for a dark room, then just buy one that's already pretty big. Because it will take a while to get really tall if it's in low light, if it's in the dark room. But yeah, they are really awesome, very large plants with very large leaves, which I also really like. But next up, I've got a really great tree that a lot of people know can be grown outdoors, but there's a specific type that's great for growing indoors. So let's take a look at that right now. Now we are talking about the spineless yucca. I'm sure that a lot of people have heard of the yuccas that grow out in the desert, and even around where I live, there's these soft leaf yuccas, which are these weird kind of spindly leafy yuccas that grow out in the woods and by rivers and stuff. But this type that we're talking about here grows really well indoors as a houseplant and really isn't very difficult at all. They do need a lot of light though, so definitely if you are going to get one, put it in a big bright window. They are still native to dry desert regions, so they do need bright light, but they also don't need much water. So make sure that you don't overwater them, but just water them infrequently and they'll be just fine. They'll be easy to grow and they'll grow tall fairly quickly. So while we're on the topic of desert plants, let's check out another really odd looking, very cactus-like plant that grows all over the world. For plant number 5, I have got the euphoria, which is another of these plants that has a ton of very different looking, very unique, different types of plant within the family. There are actually euphorbias that are herbs. There are some that are more like trees or shrubs. And then there are some that are succulents. So that's the type I'm focusing on here. But even within the smaller group of just the succulent euphorbias, there's a lot of diversity and many different types. The poinsettia plants that you always see around the holidays are actually a type of euphorbia. But that one I do not really necessarily recommend. If you've ever had a job taking care of plants in offices or, hotels or anything like that, you know just how annoying it is trying to keep all of these poinsettias alive until Christmas. They're so fragile and they break so easily, and I'm sick of those ones. But fortunately, there is a lot of other great types of euphorbia. There is the crown of thorns, which have beautifully colored flowers and are often sold as very small plants, but they can actually get very large. There's the classic, which I've talked about a bunch of times before, the Euphorbia tirocali, or the pencil cactus, which have a very cool geometrical kind of look, and they can also turn bright red at the tips, and they just look very spectacular. There's also the Euphorbia ingens, which I've heard called the cowboy cactus or the candelabra euphorbia. And they do look very cactus-like and will bring a very cool desert feel to the room they're in. And that's just a few of them. But there's so many more cool euphorbias that just look very otherworldly. So I really like that a lot, obviously. But just be aware, though, that euphorbias do both sometimes have thorns or spikes, and they also have a poisonous sap inside of them. So this is definitely not a good option for people that have young kids or if you have a lot of pets. But if you have a big house with a good spot where the plant can't possibly be bumped into, then you got nothing to worry about. And they really are beautiful and just a great option if you're looking for a large house plant. Next up, I'm going to show you a tree that is actually so good that it may have helped the Buddha himself to reach enlightenment. So you do not want to miss this one. So next up, we have got the Audrey ficus, or the Ficus bengalensis. And like I said, this tree may have played a role in helping the Buddha to attain enlightenment and reach nirvana. The legend goes that the Buddha was actually meditating under the shade of the Audrey ficus when he actually transcended the cycle of rebirth and reincarnation, and he reached the end of the Eightfold Path. But the Audrey ficus is an incredible houseplant beyond just its legendary history. It's a very beautiful plant. The color and the shape and the texture of the leaves are all really quite striking. And if they're in enough light, then they can also grow very large. I've seen them get over 10 feet tall inside, and it's really an incredible thing to have in your home or your office or your business or wherever you want it. It's going to look really awesome. And they also put out these long aerial roots as they get large. And if you want, you can cut them off, but I personally really like the look of these aerial roots. They really give the plant a very tropical kind of vibe. And a cool little story about those aerial roots on the Audrey ficus. I'll try to find a picture and put it up here. But where they grow deep in the jungle, there's a few pictures I've seen where there's basically an Audrey ficus on either side of a canyon with a river going through it. And basically, people have taken the aerial roots from both of the trees on either side of the canyon and weaved them together and made a bridge out of it. So over time, it grows together and it only grows stronger over the years. So that is really sick, honestly. I'd love to go visit that someday. And I know I'm basically just rambling on stories about the Audrey ficus at this point, but it is an amazing houseplant, an amazing large indoor tree that is not hard to take care of either. We are at plant number 7, and we are talking about the Dracaena reflexa. Out of all the Dracaenas, I think the reflexa is the nicest. Or at least it's my favorite, I think. I just love the look of these plants. You can keep them really densely, leafed up, I guess you could say, but, you can leave all the leaves on it and keep it very full and looking very tropical. Or you can remove a lot of the leaves, on the lower stems and let the stems be exposed. And doing that gives it a very different but also very cool look, since the stems look really nice and they grow at all these weird kind of angles and give it a more kind of refined architectural kind of look when you do it like that. And there are also 3 different types of reflexas, which are all, of course, beautiful, but there's different options depending really, what colors you want for what room you're going to put it in. There's the normal green reflexa, which is just a solid green, but it's a really nice dark shade of green. So those are really nice. You've got the Song of Jamaica Dracaena reflexa, which is green with a lighter stripe down the middle, and then the Song of India reflexa, which is the yellow reflexa, and is my personal favorite of the 3. So that is the Dracaena reflexa, which is just an incredible plant that can get very large and look really spectacular inside. And none of these Dracaenas are very hard to take care of, but out of all the different types of Dracaenas, I'd probably say the reflexa, it's one of the hardest ones to grow. So next up, I want to show you the easiest of all the Dracaenas. So let's check that out. Now let's talk about the Dracaena marginata, which is very similar to the reflexa, but it has longer, thinner leaves. And like I said, they're also easier, in my opinion at least. I think that reflexas really need to be right in a window. And if they're not in good light, they can be very hard to keep looking good. But the marginata is not hard to grow in low light. I've grown them in very low light spots many times, and it really is easy. The key is just that you barely water it. Just water it very infrequently. And it definitely also helps to fertilize them regularly, as you should always do, anyways. But if you just water them heavily when you do water them, but allow for many days in between waterings and make it very infrequent, then you can grow them in pretty much any space indoors, any amount of light. So they're easy, they can get big, and I've actually seen them grow like 40 feet tall when they're growing outside. I saw some growing in Florida, in in Tampa, I think. But they get huge outside. They're easy. They're big, and there's just a bunch of different types as well. There's the Colorama, which is the reddish pink kind of one. There is the Kiwi marginata, which is the yellow and green, and they're real. Those ones are really nice. And then there's the bicolor marginata, which has red and white stripes on the edge. And, there's just a bunch of other types that are really nice. So there we have it, the Dracaenas, the marginata, and the reflexa, two beautiful large indoor plants. And next up, we have got another great palm tree. All right, we've made it to plant number 9, the lady palm, which is a really unique houseplant with a very interesting look. They both can get very big and are easy to grow, as long as you do one thing, as long as you keep them in bright light. I have seen people saying online sometimes that lady palms are good low light plants, but I have not found that to be the case. And I think these actually do better the more light they're in. So as long as you keep them right, in a really bright window, you should have no problem. They like a lot of water, a lot of light, and if you have it in these conditions and then also fertilize them regularly, of course, with a high nitrogen organic fertilizer, such as the Fox Farm Grow Big or that Microlife Biomatrix, that good stuff, then they will get big fast and they will look awesome. They have a weird looking bark on the stems as well, and it gives them a kind of almost bamboo kind of look, kind of. And they're just a great option if you're looking for an easy to take care of large indoor palm tree. Next up, I've got a beautiful blue large cactus that you can grow indoors. And did I mention it's blue? Let's take a look at that. For plant number 10, we have got the blue myrtle cactus. If you're looking to bring a desert feel to a certain room you have, the blue myrtle is a great option. First and foremost, the color is just beautiful. It's this really nice shade of blue, like kind of like powdery blue almost, sometimes bluish green, depending on how much light they're in. And they can get big. Outside, they can grow to like 15 feet tall. Obviously, inside, they're going to grow much slower and probably not get that tall. But, if you have really large south-facing windows with high ceilings and you keep it alive for a long time, I guess you probably could get it that big indoors. And as they get taller, they start to kind of branch out and become, they become really tree-like, and they're really breathtaking when you have them indoors. But definitely make sure they are in your brightest window if you're going to grow them indoors year-round.
Or if you don't have a super bright spot, you can also keep them outside for half the year. So, just put them outside in a bright spot all summer long and then bring them inside the rest of the year. So, have them outside for maybe 5 or 6 months and have them inside 6 or 7 months a year. And when you bring them inside, you just barely ever water them. And then they also have really nice fragrant flowers. So if you can get them to flower inside, it's going to just fill your home with an incredible scent. And they can even grow edible fruit as well. So these blue myrtles are awesome, but you do need a lot of room right in front of a really bright window with tall ceilings, and they are cactus. So if you don't have room for a huge cactus right in front of a window, then I've got another option for a great large houseplant, and we'll take a look at that right now.
All right, guys, now we are talking about the money tree, the Pachira aquatica. And I've always really liked these plants. I got one right here. But I just went to quickly look up where these are native to. And wow, I've got to say, I am very surprised by what I've seen when I Googled this. I thought I knew about the Pachira aquatica, but I did not realize that, first of all, they're in the mallow family, Malvaceae, which has mallows, hibiscus, rose of Sharon, the cacao tree, the chocolate tree, the cotton plant, okra, and many, many more. So it's a really, really cool family of plants, Malvaceae, and I didn't realize the money tree was in this family, or that it had not only a really incredible flower, so I've got to put mine outside and see if I can get it to flower, but it also has an edible fruit, which is called the Malabar chestnut, the Saba nut, or manguba. It's called in Brazil. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong, but in Brazil it's called manguba. And by the way, they are native to Central and South America. But yeah, these are one of these plants that, you don't want to necessarily put them in a super bright south-facing window or anything like that. But you also don't want to have them in a dark room either. You want them just kind of near a window, like I have mine. And that's the amount of light that I found works best for these guys. And they also don't need to be watered super often. I'd say just every 10 days or 2 weeks. And they'll get pretty big inside. All right, we are on to the final plant of the list. And I think you're not going to see this one coming. I think I am on to something here with this plant. So let's check it out right now. Thank you, guys. All right, plant number 12 is the bromeliad. So I'm sure many of you guys have heard bromeliads or grown bromeliads before. The smaller ones, the Guzmania, I think is the most popular, or the silver vase, the one with the pink flower and the silverish green leaves. These ones can get maybe, 2 feet tall when they're flowering, but I don't think a lot of people know that there are some bromeliads that get much bigger. And that is what I'm talking about here. I honestly didn't know bromeliads could get so big until I saw some at this tropical plant conference thing that I went to a few years ago. But there are some that can get 4 feet wide and 3 feet tall, and they look crazy. And if they flower, they can get probably 8 or 10 feet tall. And they look like nothing I have ever seen growing indoors before. And I have never seen someone who has one of these huge bromeliads in their house. I just saw it at this conference. And as soon as I can afford to have a bigger house and I can afford to buy one of these huge giant bromeliads, I am definitely going to. I think that if you have a huge bathroom, you have got to get one of these huge bromeliads. They love humidity, but they don't necessarily need a ton of light. So these would be perfect for the bathroom, and they've got to be the most epic bathroom plants of all time. I can't wait until I can get one. I mean, just look at this thing. This is one of those plants that you look at and you just can't even believe that it's even real. And, you know, if you don't have room in your bathroom, I think these could grow well pretty much anywhere in your house, as long as you just mist them down every once in a while to keep the humidity up. You know, because they don't need a lot of light, so you can grow them anywhere, but just keep that humidity up. And I mean, in any room, these things would be truly breathtaking. I mean, if you had one that was flowering inside your house, I think every time someone came over and saw it for the first time, you know, it would be shocking. It's that crazy. It wouldn't just be an impressive plant. It would be shocking to see it in your home. So if you have got the space, you have got to get one of these giant bromeliads. I think having these inside is going to be a trend in houseplants pretty soon. And we may just be starting that trend right here, right now, actually. These things are just amazing. And I can't wait till I can get one in my home. But there we go. Those are the 12 best large indoor plants. So definitely go get one of these. Or get a small one and, you know, let it grow large over time. That can also be really amazing. See a plant grow big over years and years and put in that time and see the growth. It's a very special thing. But whatever you do, you have made it to the end here. And so I really appreciate that. And I love you guys very, very much. Thank you so much. And please like and subscribe if you haven't. And I'll be back very soon with a bunch more videos. So thank you guys very much. Love you guys.